How to heal your relationship with your child with the law of assumption. What if every moment of conflict, silence, or resistance between you and your child wasn't a failure, but an echo of what you unconsciously believe about yourself as a mother? What if the distance you feel isn't emotional at all, but vibrational? In this video, you'll discover how the invisible power of your assumptions, your inner states of being, shape every interaction, every tone, and every bond with your child. This isn't about positive thinking or parenting techniques. It's about understanding that your child is not responding to your words, but to your frequency. When you assume guilt, you attract resistance. When you assume peace, your child's nervous system entrains to your calm. This is the essence of Neville Goddard's law of assumption. Whatever you accept as true in consciousness becomes the reality you live. You will learn how to use this law not as a spiritual theory, but as a scientific process of reprogramming your emotional field, one that neuropsychology and quantum physics already confirm. Through simple yet powerful techniques of mental revision and conscious embodiment, you'll see how the bond with your child can be healed from the inside out. If you stay until the end, you'll experience a guided exercise that will shift the memory of pain into a memory of harmony, freeing both you and your child from old energetic loops. This video will teach you how to create peace, not by asking your child to change, but by stepping into the version of yourself that already lives in that peace. Those who skip this will keep trying to fix behavior with logic, unaware that love only responds to vibration. The mothers who stay will discover that healing isn't something you do, it's something you assume. Let's begin by understanding the real reason why love sometimes turns into resistance and how assumption becomes the bridge back to connection. Chapter 1. The Invisible Mirror. Every child reflects the inner world of the mother, not as imitation, but as energetic resonance. What you hold most consistently inside, fear, guilt, tenderness, calm, becomes the emotional tone your child absorbs and expresses. This is not poetic, it's neurological. Studies in interpersonal neurobiology by Dr. Daniel Siegel show that a child's nervous system is shaped by the emotional patterns of the caregiver. What Neville Goddard called the world is yourself pushed out is mirrored in neuroscience as the phenomenon of emotional contagion. When a mother lives in tension, her body sends subtle signals: voice pitch, microfacial movements, cortisol levels in her touch. The child reads those signals long before understanding language. Mirror neurons synchronize with the caregiver's state, meaning that the baby doesn't just observe the mother's emotions, they become them. That's why the same words said in different emotional states can create completely different reactions in the child. Imagine two mothers saying the phrase, "It's okay." One says it with genuine trust that everything is fine. The other says it with suppressed anxiety. The first creates relaxation. The second creates confusion. The difference lies in assumption, the invisible mirror through which love is transmitted. Healing the relationship begins with recognizing that your child is not your opponent, but your echo. Every time you assume you are being misunderstood, you invite more misunderstanding. But when you assume connection, even before evidence appears, your energy reorganizes the dynamic. This is where maternal consciousness becomes creative power. The shift isn't in the child's behavior, it's in the vibration that precedes it. The mirror doesn't lie, it only reflects what you hold inside. The moment you change your assumption, the reflection begins to change with you. Chapter 2. The Wound of Guilt. Guilt is the most misunderstood emotion in motherhood. It disguises itself as responsibility, as care, even as love, but underneath it lives fear, the fear of not being enough. Every mother who has ever raised her voice, lost her patience, or craved a moment alone has felt its weight. Yet guilt does not make you a better mother. It keeps you trapped in self-surveillance, measuring your worth against an ideal that never existed. From a neuroscientific standpoint, guilt hijacks your ability to connect. When you're flooded with shame, your brain moves into survival mode, narrowing your perception and cutting off empathy. You start reacting instead of responding, protecting yourself from an imagined threat that is actually your own judgment. Neville Goddard often said that creation begins in assumption. You cannot create from a state of self-condemnation because guilt vibrates at a frequency opposite to love. It says, "I am wrong," while love whispers, "I am whole." The law of assumption depends entirely on inner congruence. If you imagine harmony but secretly believe you are undeserving of it, your subconscious will always follow the stronger belief. This is why so many mothers practice affirmations that never manifest. They are trying to build peace on top of self-rejection. Modern psychology echoes this truth. Dr. Brené Brown's work on vulnerability shows that guilt, when left unexamined, becomes shame, and shame isolates. It convinces you that you are alone in your flaws, that every other mother is doing it better. But the moment you speak guilt into awareness, it loses its grip. Awareness is light, and guilt cannot survive in light. When you ask yourself, what was I feeling in that moment? What was I trying to protect? You begin to see that guilt was not punishment, it was a signal. A signal that your nervous system was overwhelmed, that you needed compassion, not correction. In the quiet of reflection, you may realize that your child never needed you to be perfect. They needed you to be present. Neuroscience proves that repair after rupture is more powerful than never rupturing at all. When a parent apologizes with authenticity, the child learns resilience and trust. The bond becomes stronger, not weaker. The same is true inside yourself. When you forgive your past reactions, your nervous system softens and peace returns to the field you share with your child. Guilt often tries to convince you that healing requires penance, but in truth, healing requires permission. Permission to be human, to grow, to choose differently. When you grant yourself that permission, you shift from the vibration of guilt to the vibration of grace. And in grace, the law of assumption begins to work effortlessly. You no longer force love, you assume it. You no longer chase peace, you remember it. The moment you forgive yourself, you reopen the gate of creation. That's when assumption stops being theory and becomes transformation, not as belief, but as embodied truth. Chapter 3. Understanding the law of assumption in motherhood. The law of assumption is not about fantasy. It's about awareness. It teaches that your world is a mirror reflecting what you assume to be true. In motherhood, this principle becomes visible faster than in any other area of life because children respond not to appearances, but to energetic states. They are intuitive readers of vibration. Long before language develops, they can sense whether the person before them feels safe. A mother who carries worry in her body may speak words of reassurance, yet the child still feels the tremor beneath the surface. Neville Goddard explained that imagination is the creative center of consciousness. Whatever you imagine and emotionally accept as true begins to externalize. In practical terms, this means that if a mother constantly envisions conflict, she subconsciously sustains the pattern. Her tone sharpens, her reactions quicken, her energy tightens, and the child mirrors that field. Conversely, when she assumes harmony, the same neurological process that once amplified tension now amplifies peace. She unconsciously chooses calmer tones, softer eyes, more grounded responses. The child receives this shift as safety, and the behavior changes without instruction. Neuroscience provides the bridge between Neville's metaphysics and modern psychology. Studies reveal that the subconscious mind cannot distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. When you consistently imagine yourself as a calm, loving mother, your neural circuits align with that version of reality. The brain fires in new patterns, and the body follows. This process, known as neuroplasticity, is the physical counterpart of assumption. The law of assumption also exposes a hidden truth. You are not at the mercy of your child's behavior. You are participating in an energetic conversation. Every assumption you hold sends an instruction into the shared field between you. When that instruction is guilt, you attract defiance.
When that instruction is peace, you attract cooperation. The shift happens not because you changed your child, but because you change the vibrational message they receive from you. This is not about control. It is about alignment. When your inner state matches the reality you desire, life organizes itself around that harmony. The relationship becomes lighter, more fluid, more intuitive. You stop trying to parent from fear and start guiding from presence. You realize that motherhood was never meant to be a constant performance. It was meant to be an unfolding of consciousness. You are not imagining to escape reality. You are imagining to instruct it. The law responds to the mother who knows who she is, not to the one still doubting her worth. When you assume love as your truth, the universe aligns every interaction to reflect it. Chapter 4. The Inner Revision Practice. Revision is the most powerful tool within the law of assumption, yet the most overlooked. It is the practice of rewriting a memory until it vibrates with peace instead of pain. The human brain does not store the past as static footage. It stores it as flexible data that updates every time it is recalled. Neuroscientists call this process reconsolidation. Neville Goddard intuitively understood it decades ago when he said, "Change your imaginal act and you change the fact." To begin, choose a moment that still feels heavy, a bedtime argument, a time your child cried and you felt helpless, an instant where you spoke in a tone you regret. Close your eyes and allow the scene to appear, but do not resist it. Feel it fully, because emotion is the key that opens memory. Then, without forcing, introduce a new outcome. See yourself responding with calm. Hear your child's laughter instead of tears. Sense relief blooming in your body. Repeat this until the emotional charge lessens, until the memory feels lighter, as if rewritten. What happens in that moment is not illusion, it is reprogramming. The brain replaces the old neural imprint with the new emotional meaning. Your subconscious begins to reference the revised version as reality. The next time a similar situation arises, your body will instinctively act from the updated pattern. You will notice that patience comes more easily, understanding feels natural, and connection flows without analysis. This practice is more than mental rehearsal. It is energetic editing. Each time you revise, you reclaim a fragment of power lost to guilt. You stop feeding the vibration of, "I failed," and start feeding, "I am capable, I am present, I am love." Mothers who practice revision report profound changes not only in themselves, but in their children. Communication improves, sleep deepens, anxiety fades. The field between them becomes coherent again. The reason revision works is that it bypasses logic. It speaks directly to the subconscious in the language of imagery and emotion. The subconscious does not argue, it obeys. When you imprint peace through repetition, peace becomes the default setting of your energy. The child, being energetically linked to you, adjusts accordingly. You are not changing the past, you are redeeming it. Each revised memory is a bridge to a timeline where harmony already exists. The moment you feel that alternate reality is real, the universe begins rearranging itself to match. What once felt like regret becomes gratitude, because every moment of pain was only asking to be rewritten into love. Chapter 5. The Quantum Field of Connection. Between you and your child exists an invisible field, a constant exchange of energy, emotion, and information. The Heart Math Institute has demonstrated that the human heart generates an electromagnetic field measurable up to 3 feet beyond the body. This field transmits coherence or chaos depending on your emotional state. When your heart is calm, its rhythm is harmonious and it entrains the systems around it into that same order. Your child, sensitive and attuned, begins to synchronize subconsciously with your frequency. This phenomenon, known as physiological entrainment, is what allows a baby to calm in a mother's arms or a toddler to relax in the sound of her breath. It is the scientific reflection of Neville Goddard's principle that the outer world is the projection of inner states. When you assume peace, you emit coherence. When you assume fear, you radiate disorder. Both realities coexist,
but the one you dwell in becomes dominant. Every thought you hold releases an electrical impulse, every emotion a magnetic wave. Together, they shape the field of your home. A space filled with chronic worry feels dense and noisy, even in silence. A space infused with gratitude feels light and safe, even in stillness. This is why your assumption matters. It determines the frequency your environment carries. Mothers often believe they must fix the child's behavior directly, yet energy moves faster than instruction. When you shift your inner field, your outer experience follows. You may notice that after meditating on peace, your child's tantrums soften more quickly, or their body language becomes more open. This is not coincidence. It is resonance. In this sense, you are both scientists and artists of energy. The law of assumption is your formula. Love is your medium. By sustaining the vibration of harmony, you communicate safety beyond words. Your child learns emotional regulation not by explanation, but by absorption. This understanding dissolves the illusion of separation. There is no you and them. There is only a shared field continuously shaped by state. To heal it, you don't need to push. You need to assume. The coherence you hold becomes the blueprint the other follows. That is the quantum language of love, the place where science and spirituality meet, proving that energy is not abstract, it's maternal. Chapter 6. Embodying the new state. To embody the law of assumption is to live it through your senses. It's not enough to think differently. Your body must feel the new reality as truth. Begin your day in awareness. Before your feet touch the ground, take one deep breath and silently affirm, I am the calm center of my child's world. This single act shifts your nervous system into regulation. The body moves from fight or flight to safety and connection. From that place, every word and gesture carries the vibration of peace. Throughout the day, observe the small spaces where assumption can live. When your child resists, notice your first internal response. Instead of reacting, assume understanding. Imagine the atmosphere softening before you even speak. Your nervous system sends new information into the shared field, guiding both of you toward coherence. The physical environment also plays a crucial role. According to neuroarchitecture, spatial design influences emotional states. Light filtered through curtains, natural textures, gentle music, all signal safety to the brain. When your home embodies calmness, it becomes an ally to your assumption. You are training not just your mind, but your surroundings to reflect peace back to you. Consistency creates identity. The more you inhabit this new state, the less it feels like effort. You stop reminding yourself to be calm because calm becomes who you are. Your child senses this stability and naturally mirrors it. It's not teaching, it's transmission. Embodying the assumption is not denial of chaos, it's mastery within it. Even when things go wrong, you hold your center. You no longer look for evidence before believing, you believe first and evidence follows. The vibration of your certainty builds new neural and energetic architecture, one that supports the mother you've chosen to become. When assumption is embodied, motherhood becomes sacred design, a living expression of consciousness in motion. Chapter 7. Integration and community. Healing through the law of assumption is not an event, it's a rhythm. You move from awareness to forgiveness, from imagination to embodiment, and eventually it becomes second nature. You no longer measure progress by external behavior, but by inner coherence. The relationship with your child becomes a dialogue between souls, each reflecting the other's growth. Integration means bringing the practice into daily life until the line between the spiritual and the practical disappears. When you cook, you infuse gratitude. When you speak, you choose presence. When silence falls, you listen not to noise, but to energy. Every act becomes a prayer, every moment a revision. Community amplifies this process. When mothers share the same assumption of peace, the collective field expands.
Each declaration, spoken, written, or silently felt, contributes to a vibration strong enough to shift generational patterns. Healing then moves beyond personal transformation. It becomes ancestral repair. If this message resonates, anchor it through action.
Write in the comments, "I now assume harmony between me and my child." This phrase is not decoration, it's activation. It signals to your subconscious that the decision has been made. Each mother who writes it strengthens the field for another who still doubts. Together, you create a network of coherent hearts, a community of mothers who lead through vibration instead of fear. This is conscious motherhood, not a quest for perfection, but a devotion to presence. It's the understanding that peace doesn't come from controlling the world, but from assuming it's already safe. And in that assumption, everything begins to rearrange. Thank you for walking this path of awareness, for daring to believe that love is not something you give or take, but something you remember. The law of assumption is not about pretending life is perfect. It's about realizing that you have always been the creative center of your reality. You are both architect and home. Every assumption you hold builds the emotional architecture your child grows within. Let this be your invitation to design consciously, to choose thoughts that nourish, words that heal, and spaces that breathe. Every moment you return to calm, you teach your child that safety lives inside, not outside. Every time you forgive yourself, you teach resilience. Every time you assume love, you teach faith. If this journey touched you, subscribe and share it with another mother ready to remember her own creative power. Together, we're shaping a generation raised in coherence, compassion, and consciousness. The more we assume harmony, the more it becomes reality, not only for our families, but for the collective field of humanity. As the music fades, take one last breath and whisper to yourself, "I am the peace I was seeking." Let that truth echo through your body, your home, and the heart of your child. Because healing doesn't begin when life changes. It begins when you assume it already has.